Hello everybody and welcome to the Pretty Good Gaming Podcast. This is podcast number 57. Hello a croeso I podcast rhif 57. My name is Mr. Gareth Evans. I am joined today via the powers of the internet by Mr. Henry. Oh, look at me, I've got a nice hat on. Cooper. I couldn't think of anything today.
This is not very funny. I mean, the hat's because my because my hair's in need of a cut and I can't be asked to just keep pushing it out of my face. So let's throw it in a hat.
It's a good plan. I got a comment this week saying that I look like somebody like with some proper real hair.
Yeah, I saw it was It was a very bizarre reference that I didn't understand, and I looked up.
It was like a Christmas show, it's like a puppet or something.
Yeah. It was
anyway.
Quite insulting, needless to say.
I don't mind. I'll take it. I mean, just bring it. Bring all the insults you want. But I mean, I can take it. I'm a man. I'm a grown adult most of the time.
I can't bear it anymore.
So how are you holding up, dude? We're in isolation for like the fourth week or whatever, third week. Are you still alive?
Just about. And I managed to use this isolation to play the shit out of the game that I was actually playing last week and I couldn't tell anyone about, but now I can. Final Fantasy 7.
Wow, absolute top secret thing, right? You were under embargo and you were just like so tight-lipped. You didn't even let me know.
No, I mean, like, well,
you didn't even let me know.
So
wow.
I had
proper spy.
I mean, what
behavior.
Can I say? I had played The Order. I had played it, but I hadn't the I won't say lie, but the misleading part was that I hadn't played it that week. So I'm sorry, you've caught me. You've been misled. I hadn't played The Order 1886 that week. I'd actually played it the week before.
Shock horror. Henry Cooper comes clean.
Cancelled.
Yeah.
But yeah, instead I've been playing Final Fantasy 7. Finished it at pretty much bang on midnight, maybe like midnight on Sunday. And the embargo time was 11 a.m. on Monday, and I was like, I mean, I could stay up and do it now, but fuck that, I want to go to bed, I'm knackered.
Fuck that, mate. Yeah, so you did release a review.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful review, if I must say so myself, and you can go check it out on the channel for those of you who haven't seen it.
Yes.
It was one commenter said it was the best. I've seen a lot of reviews, and this is the best one yet. This is the best one.
I mean,
so that what's that say?
It's nice to hear, although every single time I publish a review, I immediately think, fuck, I forgot to mention this. But yeah, it is what it is. People seem to like it. A lot of people in the comments are very negative, not about the review, but about the game itself. And it's going to be an interesting one to watch as more people get to play it once it officially releases, because some people have managed to get early access because of the distribution problems and all that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how the wider fan base responds to it, because there's some stuff. There's some controversy.
There's some stuff which you're not going to go into yet because of spoilers and that. So
a lot of reviewers maybe kind of have inadvertently spoiled it. They haven't said Batman dies or whatever like that, but they've said things, and someone who's played the original can connect the dots and be like, okay, that means that. So I'm going to try really, really hard not to do that. But we're thinking...
Well, let's hope Batman doesn't die, because that'll be a big
I mean, how will they carry the franchise forward without Batman? But we're thinking we'll probably do a spoilery discussion maybe next week, so watch out for that, especially once the wider community's thoughts, and namely things like Reddit's thoughts, have come out.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to go through what we've got in store for the viewers today. So after we've finished our laborious intro here, we'll be talking a little bit about what we've been playing this week. Talking a little bit about Google Stadia, because that is free at the moment as a free trial. A little nugget on Cyberpunk. You might be interested to hear the latest news. Got some Discord questions to take from the Patreon community. We have the Triggered Fanboy comment of the week. We could read some more YouTube comments after that. And then the infamous Bad Dad joke of the week to top off the show. Now, firstly, what have we been playing this week? So obviously, for you, it has to be Final Fantasy, right?
Yeah, I've been playing that all of, I think, every day last week and all of the weekend. Completed it pretty much at exactly 40 hours. It was like 40 hours and a few seconds. It was very, very specific. I did pretty much all of the side quests, but there's some sort of like hidden side quests that don't appear in your quest log because they can be swapped with others, and that's a whole thing. And then there's a few other like challenges and shit that you got to do, which I haven't quite cleaned up yet. But so I played it all last week, and then Resident Evil 3 came out on Friday, and I bought that, but I haven't fucking touched it yet.
You've just been mopping up the additional content, I guess, in Final Fantasy.
Because my plan is with Resident Evil 3, because it's been criticised for being very short, it's only like 5 to 6 hours, which in my mind is no bad thing if those are 5 to 6 really fucking good hours. So I'm planning to probably knock that out over the weekend, like in just one, maybe not one, but like a bulk sitting to try and get as much of it done as I can. So I thought I'd leave that and I'd just play Final Fantasy and get even more thoughts on it after having finished it. And I'm assuming most of you will have watched my review before I go into this talk. So if you haven't, I encourage you to do that, because that's going to be much more in depth, and this is going to be a bit more opinionated, because I always try to keep reviews will always have a little bit of opinion, but I try to just give you the information. Don't always succeed, but hey ho. So the biggest thing, talking point anyway, is the filler versus fleshing out argument, and that was the subject of a lot of the comments, both positive about the review and positive and negative about the game itself, because the game is only the opening section of the original game. It's only the first. I mean, there are varying numbers. Some people say it's a third of the game, and I'm like, I did not spend a third of my time in that one section. It's about 5 hours ish, and it moves fast. It's like, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. The way I describe it is you're going from A to B to C to D, blah, blah, instantly. However, in this one, you go from A to B, but before you get there, you've got to do A1, A2, A3, A4, and then get to B, and then do B1, B2, B3, B4. Because there's all this extra stuff. A lot of it's good. And again, I'm going to try not to spoil any of it, but there's a section where you spend a lot more time with the Avalanche team members. So Avalanche is the group you're fighting with to fight the bad guys, essentially. You spend time with Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge, and you learn a bit more about them, and they become actual characters, and they're just way more fleshed out, and that's great. That's awesome. But then there are entire bits where it's just, this isn't benefiting the larger story. Yeah, it gives me a little bit about these characters, like a little bit of extra character growth and who they are, but that can be done without making it feel like filler.
Does it really need to benefit the larger story, though? I mean, if you think about the amount of content, I mean, for the purposes of people who've never played Final Fantasy before, Final Fantasy 7 that is, it might be really welcome.
Yeah.
But I feel like that most of the criticism has come in from, you know, ardent fans of the franchise who just expect it to be a certain way, and their expectations are dashed, and there's just a little bit more, or it's a little bit different, and then that's when the conversation begins. Do you think that anyone who hasn't played the original will think this is fine?
That's the thing. Someone commented it interestingly, saying if you didn't know this was going to be episodic, you would probably think it's fine, because it is actually a very well self-contained story, and I described it as like a TV show, because it's one season, and then it ends with this big cliffhanger, and in the original, the Midgar section ends with quite nicely in that way. Again, I won't spoil it if you haven't played either of them. I feel like I've lost my train of thought there, but yeah, so I think a new player who hasn't played the original will totally be fine with it, and you're absolutely right, a lot of people's expectations will kind of interfere with how they experience it. With me, all of the changes, both large and small, I actually really like. There's some really, really big ones. There's some really subtle ones that actually benefit the characters in much more subtle ways. Like I use the example of Tifa. Her character in the original, she's very conflicted, and that comes through a bit in the original, but because it's only text-based, you're just reading it, you can only get so much of how the storyteller wants to give it to you. It's much more open to interpretation that way, but the storyteller can have more control if they get a actor to read it in a certain way with I'm not going to say photorealistic, because the game's very stylized, and those characters, they're not supposed to look like normal people, but you know what I mean. A very high fidelity, high quality performance with little facial twitches and stuff. That's great, and that fleshes her out so much without even being too overt, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like she'll just react a certain way or turn, some cinematic stuff like that. But then there's some...
There are parts in the original, though, that I mean, there was dialogue, and I would just be like, what does that mean? I don't understand. They're trying to portray something, but they just didn't get it quite right.
Yeah.
And you move on, and it's quickly kind of brushed over, and then you're moving on to the next section, you forget about it. But I can imagine that they've been able to communicate what they're trying to communicate, because you can't see the faces in the original. You can't see how they're saying things. You can't see maybe they're making reference to something that you just can't make that connection, because the original is just so inferior, like graphically.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. And I don't know. There's points in it though, because all that sort of stuff's really, really great. But there's points in it where there's entire sections which you're not gaining anything apart. I mean, you're gaining more gameplay, and that's always great. I'm not trying to say that, but the story slows down. And if you're not interested in the story, that's not going to be a problem. But this is Final Fantasy VII. It's one of the most critically acclaimed video games ever, a lot down to its story and its characters and stuff. And there's again, I'm trying not to spoil it, but there's this one section where you're getting ready, and it's like, bam, here's a reveal, which again is a slight deviation from the original, so that makes it kind of exciting. It's like, oh, okay, this is a little bit different. And then it just is like, okay, we're not going to have you do that now. We're going to send you on this detour and have you do this sort of puzzle thing. And it's fine. None of it's terrible. It's just I'm going through the motions to get through this, to get to the bit you just teased me with.
Yeah. That's pretty frustrating. I mean, I can imagine the frustration, especially if fans of the original who just want the whole game. Give me the whole game. You giving me, what's this? Just the first part of the game, and then you're making all this bloody filler. Why didn't you just focus on? I mean, obviously, I'm verbalizing what's going on in their minds here, because if it's anything to do with frustration or rantiness, I'm on the wavelength. You know what I mean? So you can see where it's coming from, this frustration.
Yeah, that's exactly it, because they've chosen to limit themselves to doing just the first part. And that's fine if they can thoroughly expand on everything. Again, there's no information about what's coming next, and I'll move on to that because that's the ultimate question. But if what we do have in this limited section is unnecessary, then why did you limit it? Why did you not use that time to expand this section into a broader section and maybe make a 2-part Final Fantasy VII Remake instead of a 3-part or even more? And the main thing, the one that is my biggest bugbear out of all of it, is Red 13 not being playable. So he's this sort of lion wolf character but he's also like really smart. And he joins you towards the end of the Midgar section. And that's what they said when they came out and said, he's not going to be playable, sorry, he's going to be a guest party member, so he'll be with you, but you can't control him, you can't equip any of his gear or material or magic or anything like that. The problem is that he's actually still in it for quite a substantial chunk. He's in it for quite a few hours, especially as they stretch out these sections. If it was paced like the original was, it'd be like, oh yeah, fair enough, it doesn't make sense because you get him, and then there's maybe an hour left, and then you leave Midgar, and then you get to play with him outside of Midgar. But that doesn't happen. So if that was the case, I'm like, okay, fair enough. Why bother spending so much time on writing this character, making them playable, and all those important game development parts if you're not going to be able to use him for very long? But you do have him on your team for quite a long time, so I feel like he should be playable. And the way he's portrayed in like the cutscenes and story and stuff, he is a proper part of the team. Everyone talks to him. It's not like he is in and out. It's not like he just joins you, then runs off ahead, so he's not walking with you. He is with you, and it just feels like he was supposed to be playable originally when they were making it, and then developmental, changes happened, and they ultimately had to remove it, and it's just frustrating. And I know he will be playable in the next one, if that ever bloody comes out. But it's a missed opportunity, and I feel like it's an omission that isn't necessary. Yeah,
it feels like maybe they just drew an arbitrary line. Like, end of Midgar, end of the game. Right, what we're going to do to make that the case, rather than think, okay, what can we do with the time that we've got? How can we recreate it? It's like they drew this line at the beginning of production, and then they aimed for that line, and then fleshed it all out accordingly, instead of just trying to make the best recreation as possible.
I saw some criticisms of Midgar itself. I really like how they've done it. I think Midgar feels a lot more fleshed out than before, and it's quite an easy background storytelling thing to do, but they just have NPCs everywhere. Most of them you can't interact with. Some of them you can, and it's just like one sentence dialogue interactions. But a lot of them, they're just talking about whatever you're doing at the moment in the story. And I think that's a really effective way to make the people of Midgar a bit more of an important character, like collectively, as one entity.
Yeah.
But I've seen some people criticizing it for being too open worldy, even though it's not an open world game really at all. It's linear with sort of hubs. And then some people saying, well, that same person or people or whatever, then saying perhaps they could have made Midgar into like a GTA level city, or like an Assassin's Creed open world or something like that. I'm like, that would be quite cool, but you're criticizing it for being open worldy and backtracking through areas, and that's one of the fundamental design flaws in an open world game, is you often end up backtracking. And while I would be totally open to an open world Midgar, there's already this much filler. Imagine how much there would be if it was an open world. And it doesn't need to be open world.
No, it's already veered away from the original game so far as it is. I mean, that would be another deviation which would be pretty unwelcome by core fans, that's for sure.
And post Midgar in the original anyway, it doesn't go open world as the way we know it now, but it does open up, and you then travel from place to place, but in an open space. That rhymed. So you can sort of go where you like, but you're only going to different towns or not. Yeah. So it's interesting. And talking about moving on to the future, they need to explain what their plan is, and I feel like they just don't have one. Because and again, teeny tiny little spoiler, but not really. At the end, there is a massive wink to the audience, being like, "We don't know what the future will hold," and I'm like, "Oh, come on."
Breaking the fourth wall.
You need to decide what the future holds, and you need to figure it out, because
and then tell the fans.
This game was announced a million years ago, and then sort of re-announced or something. And then it has eventually come out, but it's only in part, and I'm fine with it being only in part, so long as the other parts are as good, or in an ideal world even better, because I really, really liked it. But they need to come promptly, because if it's another 10-year wait between parts, no one's going to care, and the second part is going to feel completely different to the other one.
Well, the good news for fans especially is that now they've got all these assets, they've got all the characters made, they've got the engine done, they've got like Midgar environments done, and that, so they know what they're doing, and with any creative project, the more that you do something, the easier it becomes. And they've been doing this for God knows how many years now. All they've got to do is continue doing what they've been doing, and that should make the process for the second game a lot smoother, that's for sure, unless they run into God knows how many developmental issues are possible. But with the fingers crossed, it shouldn't be anywhere near the same amount of time for the second one.
All the assets are there, all the mechanics are there, 'cause I don't think there's any mechanics that are introduced post Midgar in the original, other than like a handful of mini games. And there's a lot of mini games in this first remake part, which are quite fun. But it should, in theory, be quite prompt in its arrival, but who knows? And a lot of people, and I understand this argument, but a lot of people are saying, "Oh, it's a scam. They're just breaking up so that they can sell it back to you." And I'm like, that's a fair argument, but I'm not going to say whether I agree with it or not until we've got the full package, because because they could come out and say release date for part 2 is in a year, so that's very little time to wait, and then the next part after that is only another year, so it's only a 3-part thing. A trilogy of this game could work really well. I can already think of good moments to cut off the next part if they want to do it in a similar way to this one. There just needs to be more information, more dialogue about it.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So that is your thoughts afterwards. Is there anything else you want to add before we move on?
Well, ultimately, I am criticizing it a reasonable amount here for the filler and stuff, but I did really, really enjoy it. I had a really great time. The combat is amazing. It's constantly compelling and challenging, but never like punishing like a Souls-like or anything like that. And I don't ever think it felt unfair. The camera was a bit bollocks sometimes, but it's one of those things that I can kind of get over. All the characters are great. They're exactly the way I read them, if that makes sense. Like when you read their text bubbles, that's what I then am experiencing, but in much more high fidelity. So I'm really, really impressed with it. I do think, and I don't tend to give review scores, but I think where it currently sits at 97 on Metacritic is pretty fair. And I think if you're an old
97,
87, sorry, did I say 97? 97 is outrageous. 87 is pretty fair.
Yeah, because that's more than the original. I think the original was like 94 or something.
Yeah, something like that. And then there's an argument people are having there saying, oh, well, the original was clearly better. I'm just like, well, that's not quite the same, because the original came out in 1997. So there's different industry standards and different expectations from people. If you play that game now and compare it to this game on a technical level, there's no comparison. So I don't think it's fair to compare them in review scores like that. But it's really good. I really liked it. If you liked the original, I'm sure you'll like it. There might be some frustrating things and some story deviations you might not agree with, but it's definitely worth a look.
There you go. Final Fantasy VII, the remake.
Part 1.
Let's move. Part 1. Part 1 of God knows how many.
Not a clue.
Let's move on next. We've got some news that Google Stadia is now open to everybody for a short period at the very least. Google are offering Stadia Pro, which is the top tier subscription, like the 4K streaming, for free for 2 months. All you got to do is sign up, give your payment details, whatever, and then cancel it straight after, like I did. So I've got access for 2 months now for Google Stadia Pro. Now, this isn't the free version that was promised a while ago. This is not like they promised a free version that was going to be 1080p, and that's called Stadia.
That's basic, isn't it?
Yeah, basic.
Because you're basic.
You're basic. Yeah, Stadia Basic. This isn't that. That's coming later down the line. This is the actual top tier, the exclusive tier that's been available only for premium backers for so long. So you get to taste the full fat thing now. So you do get access to the 4K version on a 2-month trial. And then after that, it's $10 a month if you're in the US, or £9 a month in the UK. And this trial is available in 14 areas. This is United States, excluding Hawaii and Guam, but including Puerto Rico and Alaska. Those are important, apparently. Canada, UK, France, Italy, Germany, Spain, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Finland, Belgium, Ireland, and the Netherlands. So if you're in any of those countries, you can trial this right now. F you, Australia. F you, everyone else. You don't get, your internet isn't good enough, let's be honest. Yeah. So there you go. When you sign up, part of the Pro subscription is a bunch of free games. Now, there are 9 free games which you can see on the screen. You've got to claim them before you can play them. And if you don't claim them, when they get taken away, then your catalogue won't, it's like that. That sort of setup. But the 9 games so far, or available right now, are Destiny 2, the collection. We all know that's a free game. We all know it's like the MMO shooter. There's a driving game called Grid, which has a pretty unique mechanic where you can reverse time if you miss a corner, which is, I tried it, and you do need it, especially with that input delay, man, I tell you. There's the game called Guilt, which was the Stadia exclusive, which is like the nightmare, eerie, kind of melancholic world kind of thing with terrible creatures and stuff.
It's currently their only exclusive, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Well, only one that's currently available. They're meant to be making others with other people, but they're officially out.
But you can play it for free now, which is a good offer anyway. Moving on, next game, Serious Sam Collection, which is the kind of retro type of first-person shooter. I tried it. And it's very difficult with the lag. It's a first-person shooter. It just doesn't belong on something like Stadia. And all right, the graphics don't really mean that much. And from my time playing it, It didn't look even 1080p on my connection. My connection is like an 11 meg connection here, and it didn't look 720. It's like 720. I've got 1440p monitor. It looked pixelated, even in this old game, and it did on the other games too. But it's almost unplayable, I'd say, as a PC gamer, as a first-person shooter player. It's almost unplayable. It's just trying to line up those shots. It's just it's so frustrating compared to the setup I'm used to. So question marks over this whole list, to be honest. But I'll carry on going through them. Next up is Spitlings, which I actually didn't try, but this is apparently hardcore arcade classic for 1 to 4 players. So it's like a child-friendly type game that you could play with your family or some friends over the internet. Again, it's something that you can play for free with friends. I played Stacks on Stacks on Stacks, which is a physics-based game where you just got to stack stuff, essentially. A great game for kids. I would say my kids would probably enjoy that. And there's like a couple of mini games where you're like shooting things that are coming at you, and there's like a dragon that shoots like fire down onto your stacks. It's basically like Tetris, but you've got to get to a certain level. Like the objective is to get to a certain level, but it's a 3D world, so you can manipulate your blocks and stick them on top of one another. And then when this dragon comes and throws fire on, you've got to like protect it. It's quite fun. I would say it was the most fun I had on Google Stadia. Let's put it that way. Don't know what that says, but yeah. And for those of you who do have kids who are bored and you don't have money to buy new games or whatever, and you've got a reasonable internet connection, throw them on that for a while. I'm sure they'll have fun. Next up, SteamWorld Dig 2, which I played to completion on the Nintendo Switch. I do recommend that game on that platform. I'm not sure I recommend it on this platform. You definitely need the controller with this. It defaults to the arrow keys on the keyboard, and it's like anything that, come on. It's the arrow keys? Cannot you use WASD? Come on. This is the PC I'm playing on, but, anyway.
All of these seem like, these are good games, just not on Stadia.
It's not, if you've got a controller, it might be fine. But then again, like I said, with issues with it looked like it was playing on my native resolution on my Nintendo Switch handheld. That was the kind of resolution I was looking at on my 1440p. There's better experiences for SteamWorld Dig 2, and it's a good game. It is really a good game. I do recommend it, but maybe not on Stadia. For free though, you can't knock it. For free, a bit of a running theme, I know. But next one was SteamWorld Quest: Hand of Giglamech. Now this is from the same IP as SteamWorld Dig 2, obviously. I think this is the best game on the Switch in this lineup because it's a turn-based game, right? It doesn't matter how slow your input reaction is. It's about figuring out what moves you're making ahead of time and then making a choice. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that it's a little bit shaky on the resolution, a little bit slow on the input. For anyone who's ever interested in getting SteamWorld Quest, it's a good offering, that's for sure. And the last game is Thumper, which is like a rhythm-based game where you're just on this one track, and a lot of people like it. It wasn't for me. From what I've seen on Reddit and that, people apparently really like this game, and it's rated really highly. But again, question mark. It's a rhythm-based game on a platform where it just has input lag. Apparently, what they've done. Apparently, I'm just heard this on Reddit, is that they've increased the duration that you get in order to get the timing right on it. But I don't know, question marks. It's not a game for me, that's for sure. But that's the offerings there. Yeah. Anything which would tickle your fancy? Question for you, right? You're not a PC gamer,
no,
but you can play these games now on your Android device. You can, if you Bluetooth a controller to it, you can do that, or any other screen that you've got. Would you be interested in trying these games out, given your situation?
Maybe, but ultimately the thing is the latency. I don't really like I do like real time. I don't really like turn-based games, and they're the ones, as you say, which are going to thrive on something like this. My internet's probably good enough to be able to have a stable, consistent connection, but I can't be dealing with the latency because I know it would just do my head in. But it's a free trial, which I will always encourage. So I might end up subscribing just to try it out, even if it's like one evening and then immediately unsubscribe or disable automatic renewal or whatever, because I want to support free trials and stuff, which is great news. But I'm not sure how much longevity it would have for me personally.
I would be interested if they put a decent game on there, because that's just not a good catalogue. I'm sorry, Google. I mean, it's got such a bad rap, right? There's so many people say so many negative things about Google Stadia. This is their opportunity. This is their opportunity to open up to the whole world. Now everyone's in lockdown. People want free shit, and people are giving it out. They've got lots of free shit to choose from. This is Google's opportunity, and I just don't think they're doing this right. Even, I mean,
yeah.
The good point is you can try this. You can try the service out for yourself now. I mean, there's a lot of people talked a lot of shit about it.
Shit it is for yourself.
Maybe that's the case. Maybe you might find that it works really well for you. I mean, there are some news outlets saying that it works really well for them. They're on a gigabit connection or whatever. They're like basically hardwired to the internet with a direct line or whatever. But it's up to you now. You can inform yourself, and instead of just spouting shit on the internet about how bad it is, you can actually try it for yourself and then spit some truth about how bad it is, essentially.
Yeah, go form your own opinions.
They definitely advise anybody to go and check it out. From what I've played so far, I think the interface is good and it works smoothly. And when you fire up a game, it comes instantly. All that's great, right? And it just feels good. You know, you don't have to. For me, with a reasonably slow internet, to fire up a game just in an instant, it's great. It is good. However, it's nothing we haven't seen before. Like OnLive was doing this 10, 15 years ago. This isn't new technology, and it just doesn't seem like it's all there. However, that said, it will appeal to some people. And I think that especially kids, people who have got kids, there's a couple of, child-focused games in there. They would appreciate this, I think, in terms of allowing kids to experience some of these games that they might not have the budget to be able to buy. But there you go. A couple of notes as well. When you unsubscribe from the service, all those games that you've got for free, basically you can't play them anymore, because you can only get them for free if you're paying for the service with a pro subscription. So when basic comes back, those games won't be playable. You have to be subscribed to the premium version. And then you lose support for 4K HDR, 5.1 surround sound, and then any future claimable games and discounts, whatever that means, all the shitty other catalogue that they want to add. So yeah, those are my closing thoughts. Really, there's not much to it other than just try it for yourselves. You might find something you like. That Stacks on Stacks. I mean, I get my kids to play that. I'm not sure. I haven't played Spitlings, so I don't know whether. Spitlings, make sure right. Yeah, that is right. I haven't tried that. I don't know if it's a good co-op game with friends or whatever, but you can do that now if that's available to you. So there you go. That is Google Stadia. Any thoughts of your own before we move on?
No, I mean, like I said, I might try it out because I want to. I mean, free trials are good, but I don't know if I actually will end up doing it.
Yeah, but it's a time thing. Yeah. Too busy with better games on superior platforms, essentially. Why would you waste your time on that thing unless there was something really impressive on there? I don't know. If it was a game like an isometric RPG, like Baldur's Gate 3, which is supposed to be coming, if that was on there for free, I would maybe spend a good amount of time on it, because it doesn't matter then, does it? Yeah. It doesn't matter how slow your inputs are or how bad the resolution is. Essentially, you're getting a premium, decent game on it, but we'll have to wait and see if that pans out. Anyhow, let's move on to a very small conversation around Cyberpunk. Now, with all the delays in the games industry around this pandemic that we're all experiencing, we've seen Minecraft Dungeons got delayed and Wasteland 3 was delayed. Last Part 2 is the biggest header so far, and that's been delayed for indefinitely.
Very controversial right now.
Yeah. absolutely. And there was a small delay by a week to Fallout 76 Wastelanders, which everyone's looking forward to. I'm actually going to try it out. With that said, question marks over games like Cyberpunk, because they are due to be coming. That is due to be coming in September. But there was an update on Wednesday where CD Projekt Red President Adam Kaczynski said that it's all on track, apparently. And he said, quote, "Since mid-March, we've been working from home. So everything's been able to, they've been able to carry on production while ensuring continuity of our operations. Our goals haven't yet changed. First and foremost, we intend to release Cyberpunk 2077 in September. We feel motivated and have the necessary tools at our disposal to meet this goal. Our plans haven't changed." This is a reiteration then on Wednesday. "Our plans haven't changed. We're steaming towards a September release of Cyberpunk." There was a huge delay in the release anyway. It was due out in April. It was due out this month. And then he pushed it back to September. So
it was due next week.
They've had extra time.
What was it?
Was it? Yeah.
Because I remember there was a time when it was going to be Resident Evil, Final Fantasy, and Cyberpunk all back to back. So I think it's the end of next week. It was supposed to be coming out. I don't know.
So yeah, I mean, we've still got 4 months?
Yeah.
It's up to 5 months now for them to finish off, and with that extra 5 months that they've had since the original delay. Indications are good that it will meet that date. However, you never know. You never know with these things. I mean, who'd have thought that Last of Us 2 would be delayed indefinitely just because of logistics, man? Just because they can't get the game on the shelves.
That's the big. There's a lot.
You've got to take him at the word.
Exactly. There's a lot of people
saying,
crying
Henry?
Conspiracy, and I'm like,
what are you saying, Henry? You're saying that's not the reason?
I can't just assume everyone's a fucking liar. But
yeah,
I mean, the Last of Us situation, they've delayed it twice now, and they're getting quite a bit of heat for it. So if they do anything now, like if there's another crunch story, or it does get delayed again, or one of the developers is a paedophile, anything like that comes out.
Thanks. We went all this way without being demonetized, and then you said the P word.
Well, maybe they won't pick us up because we say it the correct British way as opposed to the American way. But yeah, that in terms of popular perception, it's not had a win for a little while. They need a new trailer to get people excited. They said this week or last week that they're not doing a demo, categorically, so that they can work on the actual game itself. Which I'm like, yeah, I get that. A demo would help appease fans quite a bit, but I get it. I get your reasoning behind it. They need something. They need something for fans to have more than a handful of screenshots. I mean, they were very, very nice screenshots.
Neil Druckmann came out and said no demo because it'd be too much. We just focus on the game, which is fair.
Yeah,
you want them to do that, but I mean, do fans need appeasing? Is the question. I mean, fans are pissed off, but it's only because they haven't got the game. When they get the game, they'll be fine, right?
Exactly. Like, it's a question of is any of this really going to hamper their sales?
It's just impatience, essentially, right?
Exactly. But there's the logistics angle is an interesting one because Final Fantasy and Square Enix made the decision to send it early to some places in Europe and Australia to completely avoid that problem. And Sony and Last of Us have taken a very different approach. And again, a lot of people are saying just release it digitally, which I understand a lot of people feel that way, but I'm not in favor of it because then it fractures your fan base. And spoilers were out for Final Fantasy VII the evening I finished it because I was curious. I was like, I'll search just this in YouTube, just Final Fantasy VII Remake, not review, not trailer, not anything like that. And then immediately there was a thumbnail with the ending on it. Not even not just saying Final Fantasy VII Remake ending. It was this specific thing. So if that would happen with The Last of Us, which is one of the two biggest games of the year, I'd say. It's probably...
that and Mountain Blade, yeah?
Oh, yeah, of course. So if that was to happen, a lot of people would be mad. And I think people... digital is taking over the world in terms of gaming, and that's all the science and stats point to that. But in the console space, especially in the console exclusives space, physical is still, I'm not necessarily going to say it's dominant, but it's still a massive portion of the consumer base. And there is a question with why couldn't you just send a code to the people who ordered physical so that they can get it in time for digital as well, and then eventually their physical copy will show up. But that's still not going to be good enough, because the amount of strain that's going to place on the already throttled PlayStation Network ecosystem is just going to cripple the whole thing.
Yeah,
so it's a lose-lose situation right now for them.
The fact that they've cancelled all digital pre-orders too, and there's no date going forward. It's like, are we even going to get this game anymore? A lot of people asking a lot of questions. Refunding people's pre-orders is a drastic action.
Yeah.
I mean, that they would have hate to take that decision, but they must have felt it's necessary.
The positive angle is that it's a good look for them in terms of being pro-consumer. It's like, well, we don't want to take your money if you don't have the product. That looks good, but the implication is that they have no idea when the game's going to be able to come out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's drastic action, isn't it? I mean, I would say it's more of a neutral action, because you don't win favor from people for
giving them their money back.
You just avoid, exactly. You just avoid the negative side of it with it. But there you go. That's the situation regarding some of the biggest games, whether they're delayed or not. Cyberpunk still appears to be on track, whereas it's the exact opposite with The Last of Us Part 2. God knows when that is coming. God knows. And with that, we shall move on to our next segment, which is the Discord questions. Now, these are questions put to us every week by our supporters over on patreon.com/prettygoodgaming. And in reward for their patronage, they're supporting us on a monthly basis. They get to join our Discord, ask us questions, interact with us, play games with us, all sorts of very exciting stuff. So head over to patreon.com/prettygoodgaming if you want to become a supporter of the channel, help us bring you this awesome content on a weekly basis. And we were very appreciative. We literally, with the YouTube algorithm being as it is, we would not be here without the Patreon support. So we do really appreciate everybody who makes the decision to support us on Patreon. It really, really does help. So with that said, let's move on to our first question of this week from the community. And Henry, would you like to take it away?
Take it away. The first one is from Metal Shark. After only 2 weeks of video meetings where I've had to have lights shone in my face to look presentable on camera to suppliers/customers, I have no idea how you guys do it for so many recordings. Do you have any tips for presenting to camera for people more used to wiring them up? For people more used to wiring them up and doing other techie jobs behind them. Right. Butchered that sentence, but do you have any tips for presenting on camera for someone who's less good at presenting and more good at ripping them apart?
It's just do it more. I mean, it's simple. Nobody.
Evidently, I'm still not very good at it because I splurged the sentence.
Yeah. Picasso wasn't born with a paintbrush in his hand or whatever the expression is. You just got to do it more. It is very daunting, and you can see that. The evidence of that is in my very first guitar lesson tutorials, where I was too shy to even show my face and even talk in anything but a monotone voice. It's difficult, especially if you're naturally shy like myself, believe it or not. But yeah, you just get used to it. I mean, the heat off you don't even notice the heat off the lights.
Speak for yourself. I'm roasting in here.
I'm all right today, to be fair. I'm usually sweating in my arm. Oh, yeah, I'm still sweating. Never mind. Let's just move on.
Yeah, I'm deliberately
change the subject.
Trying to wear slightly darker clothes so it doesn't show up, although this shows a bit of a risk.
Yeah, I mean, you asked me to do one of your techie jobs. You asked me anything to do with networking, Metal Shark, and I'm lost. So the same applies to you, dude. How the hell do you get one thing to one computer to talk to another computer? God almighty. It's so difficult. Any sort of networking, and I'm, IPs and straight over my head. MAC addresses, I can kind of get my head around, but I don't know. You're a bit of a whiz at that, Metal Shark. So each to their own, I guess. You do it often enough, and you'll learn about it. So it's like with chatting shit to a camera for multiple hours every week. You just gotta get used to it. You just gotta.
I think
just got to get used to it.
With camera stuff, it's one of those things where normally if you're really good at something, you'll forget about it. You don't even have to think about it. But I think when it comes to camera stuff, you almost don't want to forget about it, because I'm looking at it right now, but I'm also looking here, because I've got things going on. But you've got to remember to stay there and not talk to yourself, because currently I'm now looking in the screen of the camera, but I'm not actually making eye contact. So it's little things like that which took me ages to get around, because it's not an eyeball. It's not a face, you know.
Mm-hmm. It's difficult. It is difficult. There you go. So thanks for your question, Mr. Metal Shot. I'll move on to Sergio or Durlock, who asks the next question. Why do you think in a lot of games you open the game and then it takes you to the main title and then says press space to start? Why doesn't it go directly to the game menu? What the actual fuck? That was all in caps. I thought I'd have a bit of microphone control there by shouting to the side. That's a little tip for you, Metal Shot.
Yeah, there you go.
What the actual fuck? Why do they have pre-menu screens?
Yeah, so you boot up the game, you click play game in your Steam store or PlayStation system or your Xbox system or whatever, and then you've then got to press start again. You've got to watch through all of the rights and the copyrights and the different brands that are in it and different engines and shit. Only to have to press start before you can get to the actual menu. I don't know.
I think it's an aesthetic thing. I think it's like Wrapper. You know, when you get a new tech, you buy a new phone or something, and there's like that unboxing experience where you take the lid off and then you peel the whole thing back, and it's like, oh yeah, I've got this beautiful new bit of tech. It's a little bit like that, but it's like, oh, you've got this beautiful screen, and then press space to start kind of comes up. It's more like it's them fulfilling the artistry or making it the more complete package with a little wrapper that little bow on top that you've just got to undo before you get to the actual product. I think it's more like an aesthetic thing than anything, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is fucking annoying. Why? Why do you need it? I don't know.
Now, this is the most stupid gripe ever. But the ones which say, press any button to proceed, and I always am like, you know what, I will press any button, and you're not going to let me do it. I'm going to press the touch button on the PlayStation controller or something. It's like, see, you don't mean any button. You mean start or options on the PS4 controller or X. That's all you mean. You mean the buttons which we've been conditioned to mean go. So you're a fucking liar. I want to pull a trigger and fucking go. Final Fantasy actually did that. It says press any button, and you can press any button, and it will advance you through the menu. So that's that. Anyway,
dead worth the money.
Now we've got a question from Matt from Patreon rather than Discord. I turned 40 a few weeks ago, and looking back on the many different games I've played, I wanted to know if you could go back to a time in your gaming life, what game or games would you love to play again for the very first time? If you can change the ending of any game, what game ending would you change and why? Matt. Well, thank you very much, Matt. That's a big question.
2 questions.
So if we could go back in time and play something for the very first time, what would we play? I'd have to play it at the time I played it as well, because now it spoils it. But I'd love to play The Last of Us again, to get to that ending again, because it's such an awesome ending and it's so, like, it's brave. But if I played that now for the first time, I feel like it wouldn't have quite as nicer, wouldn't be so resonant, because I know there's a sequel. I was convinced throughout the entire game that Ellie was going to die. So if I then knew that there was
she doesn't die. Spoiler alert.
I mean, she's in the trailers for the new one, a game we've talked about already on this podcast. That's what I mean. So the existence of the sequel spoils that. Well, it's not even really spoiler because it doesn't happen, but my prediction, it proves me wrong. So Last of Us is an easy one for that.
Yeah, my answer to this, I've answered this before, I'm pretty sure, is Fallout New Vegas. Because there are missions in that are memorable to even to this day, missions and characters that I will, always remember. And yeah, you can play it the second time. I've played it 2 or 3 times through, and it's not quite the same as that first time. So yeah,
everyone remembers the first time.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. Wipe my memory and let me do it all again. on a better PC as well, because at the time I think I was playing on a pretty shitty setup, so it'd be more fun at 60 frames. Anyway, thanks for the first part of the question. Anyway, second part of the question was, if you can change the ending of any video game, what would you change and why?
So I think this one, it's sort of a cheat, but I'm going to go for it. I would change the ending to the original Red Dead Redemption, not to change what actually happens to John, but I would change the fact that I have to play as Jack from then on. Let me clean up his story, because he has the epilogue and it's a really great bit, and then the credits finally roll. After that, let me switch back to John. John's just better. John's the best.
Yeah. Absolutely true. That's a very good answer. That's a very good answer, in fact. And I think the obvious answer for this is Mass Effect, the Mass Effect trilogy, where everyone was disappointed with the much amount of hype that they put into the fact that choices matter. You know, are you going to be a good guy, or are you going to be a bad guy? What are you going to choose? Like, because it all affects the outcome of your game. You get to the very last point, and I guess it's not a spoiler alert by this point, but no matter what you choose, all that happens is a different light gets beamed out throughout the entire universe, depending on your choice, and then pretty much the credits roll. It's like, oh no, it's a green. I got the green light. Oh fuck. Oh, it's all right. You got the red light. You're all right. You got the red. It was so funny and bad. And I didn't play the first one. I played the Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3. Did like the series. Really did like it. I enjoyed the journey more than the destination anyway. So it wasn't really that much of a problem for me. But still, it would have been better had they have lived up to their expectations. Had they fulfilled their expectations, rather. There you go. That's the easy, obvious answer. Thanks for your questions, Matt. And we're going to move on to Metal Shock's Quiz of the Week. And this is geared at you again, Mr. Henry.
I'm a victim. Been bullied.
But I don't know these either. So this is... He did say feel free to confer. So the question is, seeing as you did so well last week, I'm going to pick on you again, or challenge you, take a pick. This time with something hopefully a bit more difficult. Are the following questions or names an enemy from Final Fantasy 7 or an anagram of a PGG Discord member's name? Feel free to confer with Gareth on this one. You probably know all these anyway, because you've played both versions of Final Fantasy pretty recently, right?
Well, the original doesn't tell you the names of them unless you... I think you use a specific ability on them, and then it only comes up for like a second. This one, it tells you the names.
Making excuses already.
All the time. Yeah, this one tells you the names all the time, and you've got a like a bestiary and encyclopedia of them, so it tells you the strengths and weaknesses, which is really helpful. That said, I don't know if I can remember any of them.
And this is obviously a shout out to a lot of the members on the Discord community now, because they're going to get mentioned by name, which is cool. So, first option is Abhorrent Mew. Abhorrent Mew. Is that Final Fantasy 7 enemy or an anagram of a PGG Discord member?
I have absolutely no idea. I need to see the other names in front of me as well. So who's online?
Don't be looking.
I have no idea. What do you think? Because we'll do this one together.
Well, I've already.
Oh, you've looked at the answer. I'll go Final Fantasy.
This is a Discord member, Earthworm Ben.
That's really
Master
obvious
of
as
the
well.
Fight Stick. Earthworm Ben.
Sorry, Ben. I couldn't read your name.
There you go. Next up is BioRags, an enemy from Final Fantasy or PGG Discord member.
Final Fantasy. Why not?
It is a Discord member, Gaboris. Oh my god.
For fuck's sake.
He's the digital games hoarder. Disk space allowing.
I think I'm enjoying these little profiles of our Discord members. Grangalan.
Grangalang is next, Henry.
I'm going to Final Fantasy. It's got to be one of them.
Has to be, didn't it? It is Final Fantasy enemy. Egg enemy with more enemies inside. Does that ring any bells?
Nope.
Okay.
Not at all.
Next up, Lessaloploth. Lessaloploth. FF7 or PGG?
PGG.
It's FF7 enemy. Commonly appears as a dragon. Next up, Moth Slasher.
Now, this
almost
one,
too obvious, this, right?
Well, I feel it should be a Final Fantasy villain, but I don't think it is now. But I think it is. Yes, it is. I gave myself the answer.
There you go.
Yeah, that
FF7 enemy it is. Robot found in Shinra headquarters, the Moth Slasher. Next up, Mr. Fenken Uzi.
Now, this one is the only one I think I can recognize as a Discord member, and I think that's Frozen Monkey.
Yes, Frozen Monkey, absolutely. Communications expert and savant of military knowledge.
I mean, I'm taking that as an absolute win there for figuring out who it is specifically.
It said Mr. on it. I mean, come on. Next up, Neston. Is that FF7 or a Discord member?
FF7.
It's Tons, Dutch collector of physical games from the PGG Discord. I think that was the most obvious one, really. Okay, next up, Ragalok.
Final Fantasy.
It's a Discord member, Lochka, Vermintide 2 expert, and Lord of the Waters.
I think I've got 2 right.
Yeah.
Moth Slasher and Frozen Monkey. Yeah, I think I've got 2.
Next up, Slalom. Law of averages has to even out these
Final Fantasy,
ones now.
right?
Has to be, yeah. A Final Fantasy enemy found in the passage leading to the underwater reactor in Junon. If that makes any sense to you.
I mean,
next up,
in my defense, not all of these enemies appear in the remake, and I don't know. I don't know all of the names of the enemies from the original anyway, because as I said, they don't all appear. All right, last one, Staniv,
last one.
Who could you be? Final Fantasy.
Yeah, it's a FF7 boss. 4th boss, Yuffie fights in the pagoda.
See, I never did the Yuffie side story where you do that fight, so I would have never known that one.
There you go. What did you get? What, 4?
I got the last. Yeah, I got 4. Fucking
4.
hell.
Well done.
That
Congratulations, Henry.
Make Jazz do one horrible
difficult.
next time. That was
it's
really
difficult.
hard. And I apologise to everyone whose name I couldn't decipher from these riddles.
You just alienated the entire PGG Discord pretty much, apart from Frozen Monkey.
Frozen Monkey, got you back.
Held on a pedestal.
Mr. Fenken Uzi.
And thanks, Mr. Metal Shark, as well, for your continued awesome questions. We're going to move on to the next question. Is it your turn?
Yes, it is. So this is our recurring question. Despite the fact that Rob never even has to ask it anymore, we're just going to keep doing it anyway. This is from Not That Rob Lowe, and it's the Game of the Ages question, where we have to say our favourite game of a given year, and the only rule is that we have to have played it at some point, but who played the game when you were a newborn baby, so you can, just as long as you played it at any point. However, I've exceeded my games of the year, so do you want to go first, because you're still part of the core question. So
my age this week is 25, turning 26, and that was year 2006. And my most memorable, most played game from that year is Elder Scrolls for Oblivion. Now, close second was Total War, Medieval 2 Total War, which was a close second. But this was my very first Bethesda game. And yeah, I spent a lot of time. It was just one of those games you can go anywhere, do anything pretty much, and that's what I loved about it. One of my most memorable RPGs of all time, and I love it. I've still got a copy of it on the Xbox. Pretty sure of it. It's knocking around here somewhere. But yeah, Oblivion, awesome. They should remake that. It'd probably take them 20 years, and there's probably still be bugs from the original. But yeah. There you go.
I've exceeded my games limit because I am a young whippersnapper, but I've moved on based on last week's suggestion to my favourite movies. So that's, again, the same principles, but doing movies instead of games. And now I'm on to 1996. And there's a lot of good ones here. A lot that I haven't even seen that are really good, that I'm told are really good. And the further I went, I was like, oh, this is going to be hard. Then I got to the one, and it's no question. And many of you might not like it. So we've got Scream, Independence Day, From Dusk Till Dawn, Mission Impossible, Twister, Cable Guy, Romeo and Juliet, the Leonardo DiCaprio one, James and the Giant Peach, Happy Gilmore, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Matilda, 101 Dalmatians, the live action one, along with dozens of others that I couldn't be asked to write down. But my ultimate one is Space Jam. I love Space Jam. It's an important part of my nostalgia. It's baked in there. Everyone loves the Looney Tunes. I mean, everyone's got their favourite. Personally, my favourite was always Sylvester the cat. And I love Space Jam. I could watch Space Jam at any time.
I don't think you have to say more than that. Space Jam it is. What you 2 years old that year? Turning
1. I was born in 95. So turn
there
1.
You go.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question, Mr. Not That Row by proxy. Turns next has the question as follows. So I'm revisiting Persona 5 now that P5 Persona 5 Royale is out. Do you guys have any tips on revisiting other games? Are you revisiting other games? I don't know. Do you revisit games?
I'm quite bad for it sometimes. I'll go back and I say quite bad for it because I often feel like I should be playing something new, but then at the same time I'm like, well, I want to play a game I really like, so fuck it. But I'll often revisit one and I'll crank the difficulty up, or I'll do a completionist run, especially if it's like an open world thing which I've left and I can go back to. I can just clean up all the side quests and that. I've replayed Last of Us loads, and I'm planning to do it again before the new one comes out, because it's only like 12 hours or something, so I can knock that out reasonably quickly. I've done that on the second hardest difficulty, because the hardest one, it takes away all your HUD, and that was just doing my fucking head in, because I had no idea how much health I had, so I dropped it down one step just to get HUD back, and I had a really, really good time. But cool. Yeah, up in difficulties is probably my main thing when you're going back through. Or like if it's an RPG, make alternate choices or stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, you totally broke up for me then. I didn't catch that end of the last sentence. But I'm pretty sure it was really insightful and very clever. Yeah, my internet's playing up today, but I'm just about able to keep up with the conversation. So what games do I revisit? I don't really visit a lot because of the constraints on my time and the amount of new games that come out. We just got to play new games. Yeah. And I spent 45 hours on Mount & Blade 2. I mean, there's no other game is getting a word in edgeways at the moment. So Mount & Blade 2, I'm the kind of person who's all in with the game. If I'm playing a game, I'm playing the game. I'm not really distracted by anything. All my waking hours that I've got for gaming will be on that game, and then the next one comes along, and if there's no game that I'm playing at the moment, then I'll be doing something else, like just playing guitar like solidly or whatever, or just doing something else. So yeah, I'm not one to go back and revisit. And the ones I have done, like I mentioned already, Fallout New Vegas is a favorite. Yeah. There we go.
I think all this stems for me from when I was growing up with video games. I didn't have loads, and I didn't have lots of money or like pocket money or whatever to buy games. So whatever I did have, I just played and played and played and played and played. So I think that's instilled that habit in me. However, I think for a lot of other people who were in the same situation, they've then used that as a springboard to be like, well, now I have more money. I now have the opportunity to not play the same things over and over again. So
there you go. So the last one, it's not really a question, but I'm going to read this out anyway. Not that Grumpy Arse Gamer said in the Discord, hey guys, I don't have a question this week, but just want to thank you both for continuing to make videos in these uncertain times. I am sure I can speak for everyone in this community when I say we really appreciate it. I hope yourselves and both of your families are keeping well. Well, we really appreciate that comment, that Grumpy Arse Gamer, and using your platform instead of asking a question to just thank us. But a large majority of that thanks has to go to Henry, because Henry is the one putting his feet are on the ground, doing the hard work day in, day out while this situation continues. So thanks a lot on behalf of everybody, Henry, for doing the day-to-day hard work and keeping the channel going.
The hardest part about it, at the moment isn't the work itself. It's just that there's fuck all happening. Like every time in the news, it's like that's a little thing. I'm like, but it's not meaty enough, or like I don't know, because everything's getting delayed or whatever. But I'll find a way to make it work.
It's a tricky one. But I guess that's it's up to us to try and, I don't know. We've discussed about making a video next week based on a conversation around one specific part of a game. So it's like we've got an idea for something, but if news happens on that day, it's like, well, do we waste this news? We've been waiting so long for news, and then we got I don't know. It's very tricky, like Henry said, because there's F all happening, and he's pretty much on his own day to day, because I am focusing on relaunching my other channel, which is my guitar channel. Right now, so it's tricky, but we appreciate the thanks.
Fortunately, everybody. With Doom, Final Fantasy, and Resident Evil coming out, I've been busy playing stuff, but now we've got a little bit of a drought in terms of major releases. Now that Last of Us is gone and Cyberpunk is long gone, Ghost of Tsushima's meant to be in June, but I guarantee that's getting bumped.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, the problem is that there's no events happening. There's no people going to get interviews. There's no people meeting up. There's literally no social mobility whatsoever.
We should be in the road to E3 soon, but that's not happening.
It's frightening. It really is. The way that these news outlets are continuing to produce news articles. I mean, there's so much, especially local newspapers, so much clickbait. It's like, really, do I really need to know what? You'll never believe what the opening hours for Sainsbury's are going to be next week. I'm like, what the fuck? Is this actual news? It's like, come on.
The beginning and end of the story is the opening hours of this.
Exactly. Oh man. Anyway. We're just about managing it, but thanks for the thanks anyway.
Thank you.
Let's move on to the next segment of this podcast, and it is the infamous Triggered Fanboy Comment of the Week. Right, oh Henry, you have a comment of the week for us?
So, unfortunately, this one's not that triggered, but it's a reasonable amount of fanboy. But I think it's a great example of when people come to a video with all their own baggage and just project it. Because this is a whole paragraph. I haven't done a word count this time, but it's quite a lengthy one. And it was on my Final Fantasy 7 review. And a lot of what I talked about earlier will actually inform this and is part of, we're linking it all back together. So this comes from, let's see if I can pronounce this name, Nicholas Colagiovanni. It's actually quite a nice name. My name is Nicholas Colagiovanni. Okay.
Colagiovanni.
It's almost impossible not to do the Italian hands. Okay. It seems to me that everybody who is mad the game is episodic are the same people who are using the word filler over and over again. It's ridiculous. Now, let me just point out, this person may have played the game because it did ship early to a few people. I don't believe he has, though. So let me continue. Every game, in capitals, including some of the best this gen, God of War, Breath of the Wild, Horizon, Persona 5, all have filler side quests. I mean in Persona 5, you fucking text people / read text for hours. What the fuck is that? Where are all the review gripes over that rubbish? I've never played Persona 5. How am I supposed to complain about it if I've never played it? And I'm probably never going to play it. You're bringing your shit and you're throwing it at me. It's nothing to do with me. People are using filler as an excuse to push their personal agendas of being angry at the episodic release. Okay. These agendas were going to be pushed in their reviews no matter how good the game turned out to be. These side quests are not filler. They flesh out the world, the characters, and you receive helpful items, just like every other side quest ever. Time spent on side quests could have been used elsewhere, proves my point. Square Enix was never going to please everybody, but it's a shame their review scores are suffering on what is a masterpiece of a fucking game. No idea how they pulled it off. So, there's a fundamental disagreement in opinion here, which is completely fine. But coming in and screaming about filler and my complaints and criticisms of the amount of filler, and comparing it to a bunch of other games I've not mentioned. I've written a review about God of War years ago, but I've never reviewed any of those 4 games on this channel. So you bring in all that baggage and you're throwing it at me, and you've also not really listened to what I've said. Because not only was I not entirely talking about side quests, and a lot of them are fucking shit. There's one which, yeah, it's adorable and cute, but you literally find cats. The extent of it is you speak to a little girl. This is a huge spoiler. You speak to a little girl. Her friends are missing. Turns out her friends are cats. You find the cats. You go back to the girl saying you couldn't find the cats, and the cats show up. Spoiler alert for that quest. I'm not sorry. It's crap. That's it. It's all happens. And, in the review, I acknowledge that doing all of the side quests does reward you. It gives you items, and some. They're not really like quests, but they're called like discoveries sometimes. There's one in one section where if you do all of them, you can then have a moment with Tifa, and you have like a conversation option there, which then influences things later on in minor ways. But it's not just the side quests. And in my opinion, I don't think any of the side quests in God of War were filler, because all of them had their own arc to them. They all had their own little story, and yeah, they weren't all to do with the main story, and I don't really think necessarily that all of them have to be, but they should do something on their own that is worth your time. A lot of the ones in Final Fantasy VII Remake aren't worth your time because you don't gain anything worthwhile in terms of story or gameplay or characters. Some of them are really good. Some of them, it's you go on a mission and you hang out with Aerith. There's a bunch of stuff with Aerith which is designed to show how much of an important character in the community she is and how beloved she is, because everyone loves her. She's great. She's a great big hippie. But a lot of them are just, what's the point? And it's not even just the side quests. As I said earlier about this A to B as opposed to A to A1 to A2, A3. That's all filler. That's not side quests that you can skip. That's stuff that you have to engage with, and it's frustrating because it gets in the way of the good stuff. And this guy obviously disagrees with that. He doesn't think any of it's filler.
Well,
cool.
My thoughts are as follows, right? So sorry, do you want to finish?
Well, he's just brought all his own shit and thrown it at me, talking about games that I've never spoken about.
I think this guy falls into the trap of being very hypocritical. I mean, he says people are using filler as an excuse to push their personal agendas of being angry at episodic release. I get that, right? I kind of touched on that earlier during our conversation. Oh, people have got their own personal agendas, blah, 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 blah. Well, his personal agenda is to defend his game that he's a fanboy over, and no matter what, he hasn't even played the game probably, and he's still I'm defending the game. That's his personal agenda. Like, well, where do you draw the line? Are you allowed a personal agenda by defending your game? Are other people not allowed personal agendas? Like, I mean, he definitely is a triggered fanboy.
How?
Because,
sorry, go on.
No, sorry. I was just talking shit.
Yeah, he's definitely a triggered fanboy. But how is it my agenda? I didn't, as I said earlier in this podcast, but maybe I didn't make it abundantly clear in the review, is that I don't think it's a scam. I haven't said it. If I said in my review, this game's really good, I love everything about it, but it's shit because it's episodic and they should have given us the full thing, that's an agenda. But I didn't say any of that. I don't even think I criticised the episodic nature of it, other than the filler stuff means, in my mind, that the filler stuff is a wasting space which could have been spent on something else, which was part of the great whole. I don't know, man.
His point here, where he says it's a shame the review scores are suffering on what is a massive. It kind of sums up the way he feels, right? He wants essentially his agenda is that he wants the review scores to be higher, and he sees that
to match his opinion.
Yeah, exactly. What? Not everybody in the whole world thinks the same as me. I'm triggered. I mean, it's one of them, isn't it? Who cares what the review score of this game is?
It's 87. It's still really good. That's not... this annoyed me. Spin-off thing. On Twitter, the Square Enix account or something shared like a meme or a gif or something. Oh, when the dev team see the review scores, and it was now Barrett cheering. I was like, oh yeah, cool. And then a bunch of people were criticizing it, saying, oh well, actually the original's high. I was like, 87 is not a low score. What is wrong with you? Even 7, it's not a low score. That's just generally average these days. But you people, these not everyone obviously, but these people think that if it's not a 90, that it's not worth your time. And I'm like, but you won't play any games if you live in that mentality.
Yeah, it's just memeing, isn't it? It's people having a laugh on the internet. So yeah, there you go. That was the triggered fanboy comment of the week. Let's move on to the other non-triggered-ish, not quite as triggered fanboy comments, but there's some of the other better YouTube comments that we saw during this week. My first one was from last week's podcast, and Pixel Peak commented, I was talking about Mount Blade 2 Bannerlord. I was enjoying this until, quotes, Bannerlord is the game Total War should have evolved into, end quotes.
I saw that one.
No, that's nonsense. That's like saying FIFA should have ditched the fleshy humans and naturally progressed into Rocket League. I mean, that was a bit of a flippant comment. I'll grant you. I did say that Bannerlord is the game Total War should have evolved into. But that's only in my opinion, right? I think that the Total War series got stale a long time ago for me. I'm not saying that people don't enjoy what it is now, because a lot of people love the new kind of fantasy setting and the fantasy. It's just not for me. This is and to evolve the formula a little bit and just be a little bit more creative in the way that Bannerlord done. I wasn't dismissing offhand the whole of the Total War franchise now, and if it seemed like that, then maybe I should apologise. but I'm not going to. Fuck it. That's like saying FIFA should have ditched the fleshy humans and naturally progressed into Rocket League. It's not kind of what I said, though, is it? That's just a bad comparison.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, if you can be a commander it's just more immersive. Being a commander on the battlefield and take on a role of an actual warrior, more of an RPG rather than just an empire overseer as you are in Total War. It's just my opinion, man. What people? I was enjoying this until you put your opinion in it. I mean, my opinion's all over this fucking thing. Get used to it. Sorry, but that's not sorry, Pixel Peak.
Isn't it? Like we chat about stuff.
You're allowed to disagree, Pixel Peak. That's the nature of opinions.
I've got one here, which is, again, it's on last week's podcast, and I just think it's there's 2 games I would have never put together, but it made me laugh. And you've liked this one, so I know you've seen it. Andy Ross, awesome. Now I regret buying Lego Harry Potter. Should have just got Mount and Blade 2. Those two. I don't disparage the Lego games. There is a place for them in the industry. They are quite, they're easy, throwaway fun, and they have their place. But a kid-friendly, colourful, experience like that compared with a hardcore PC ass RPG.
You can imagine something like, I regret buying Chivalry or something which is almost akin to the combat's most the same. Not Lego Harry Potter.
Yeah, a couple of things at least in the same genre. But I like that this guy's clearly got eclectic tastes. I like that.
Yeah, there you go. Next up, Michael John Denny, who commented on last week's podcast as well. Henry is totally right about Braveheart and Waterworld. My God.
Yep.
Are we from different...
Fuck Braveheart, Waterworld. Waterworld's not amazing.
What are you saying?
I don't love Waterworld. I don't hate Braveheart. Oh, I might have said that last week.
Why? Can we have this conversation? Why do you hate Braveheart?
I don't hate Braveheart. It's just...
You just said you did.
No, I might. I can't. All right, fuck it. I hate Braveheart. There, I said it. I think... Any movie I saw around that time, because I came to Braveheart a little bit later because it came out, it came out in 95. That's why I brought it up.
95.
Yeah. Any movie that was like a medieval or sword-based thing that wasn't as good as Lord of the Rings, immediately in my mind was shit. Because that set the bar so high. And then watching Braveheart with adult eyes, I was just like, this just doesn't do anything for me. and knowing it's historically inaccurate as well always bugs me.
One thing I've got to pick apart with your argument there is Lord of the Rings did come 6 years after that.
Yeah, but I hadn't seen it, and I saw Lord of the Rings first.
Well, that's your problem. See,
but I can't fucking help that.
Pinpointed that right there.
It's like
let me put this into context for you youngsters.
With the best thing in the world, and then you've got anything that isn't that is a step down.
Yeah, if you could say that about anything, right? You watch a movie like Avengers movie, an action movie these days, and then you go back and watch Raiders of the Lost Ark, and you're like, what's this?
But they're two very different films in terms of their style.
But they're action movies, right?
I compare it more to something like an Avengers movie to a Star Wars movie, because they're big sci-fi blockbusters. Yeah. But I haven't seen Braveheart for a few years, and I definitely don't hate it. I just everyone loves it, and I'm just I'm indifferent.
Not everyone. Apparently, not everyone. I thought you.
Waterworld's, again, it's not amazing, but it's Mad Max on water, and it's the villain guy. I have no idea what his fucking name is, but he's an actor who's in loads of shit, and he's always sort of creepy, dirty men. But he's ridiculous. It's so over the top. Kevin Costner's amazing in everything. And Waterworld, it has an amazing budget. It's got really good production design, but I don't think it made any money because everyone hated it. But I like Waterworld. I like the water world.
All right. Well, should we leave it at that? I mean, we obviously got differences of opinion here, which is fine.
We've already defend myself.
You probably should have watched them in chronological order. I'm putting this down to your age, Henry. I'm putting this down to your age. Anyway,
Lord of the Rings is infinitely better, and I will. I don't
dispute that. I don't dispute that. Anyway, do you have another?
Well, I've got a few candidates based on my review, but there's one in particular that I'm trying to find. Well, a couple from this one guy who has been commenting on loads of others, because he's posted one first, and it's really good because it's really like he was a triggered contender. That's what I mean. But I can't find it right now. Where the fuck are you? I don't know. If you've got another one, feel free to go ahead.
So this next comment comes on your daily triple about the new PlayStation controller. And Meat Bath comments, am I still going to be able to snap it in half like a McDonald's Happy Meal toy while even mildly irritated? Someone having issues with anger and frustration there. I just thought it was funny because obviously he's probably snapped one in half.
At least he's aware of it.
Andy snapped McDonald's Happy Meal toys in half in the past.
To know that they are the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, I found one. It's not actually from the original guy, but he's commented on it anyway. So this is again on my Final Fantasy review, and I just think I wholeheartedly disagree. Shenanigans Nuts says, call this game out for ruining the story and lying about it being a remake. And then the person I was trying to find said, yep, too many reviewers are dancing around that fact. And then he's got a few other comments on a few other things, which I will undoubtedly reiterate if I can find them again. So call the game out for lying and ruining the story. It didn't lie about anything. Mislead, I'll absolutely give you, because none of the official trailers or anything said that it was just the first part of a multi-part series. So if you didn't know that and you went in, you would absolutely, quite rightly, to be honest, feel misled. I think that's fine. But they didn't lie, because they made that clear in interviews. But not everyone's going to see interviews, so that's why it's misleading. But they didn't lie. That's been a known fact for years. They came out ages ago and said that it's a multi-part thing. Lying about it being a remake, if that's not even what you're talking about, if you're not talking about it being a multi-part thing, it is a remake. It's not a remaster. And we don't really have dictionary definitions for these words in the games industry context. But the remaster is generally considered to be a graphical upgrade that looks really pretty, but mechanically it's the same, probably on the same engine, It's going to have the same story. But a remake is taking that foundation and making something new out of it, in the same vein as Resident Evil 2, which also changed a fair number of things, and Resident Evil 3, which has actually removed a lot of things that's quite controversial. This is the same situation. They've not lied about it. Ruining the story, that's completely based on your opinion, and I don't think you can say they've ruined the story because it's not the whole story. If you think that is ruining the story by breaking it up, okay, fair enough, that's an argument. But I don't think they have ruined the story because most of it is intact. There's a few controversial changes, but the core of a small group of heroes trying to overthrow an evil corporation who's destroying the planet, that's exactly what happens. Spoiler alert, yes. They do the plan. They start. Eventually, the good guys might win.
Maybe. Don't want to spoil it too much, though, eh?
Final Fantasy isn't exactly Game of Thrones. I just think this guy, he's just mad because he thinks the story's been ruined. It's a fine opinion, but I'm not going to call the game out for ruining the story when I don't think it has been, and they didn't lie. And he got 8 likes. A lot of people feel the same.
So I'm going to move on to another question, another comment now. We're going to wrap this up soon. Your audio for me is breaking up really bad, so it's very difficult to keep track of what you're doing, what you're saying. So this is my final comment from this week, which was on your PGG review, and I referred to this earlier. Captain Ahab says, best review I saw, and I saw a lot of them. There you go. That was chronologically directly after Nicholas Giovanni. Cola Giovanni commented with his Sugar Fanboy comment of the week. There you go. So that's to even out all the frustration from the Sugar Fanboy. This guy says it's the best one, and he saw a lot of them. There you go.
I got one here that a lot of people seem to feel this way, but I just think it's a dumb comment, and it's completely unoriginal as well, which is part of my disliking towards it. So it's from the Last of Us delayed Daily Triple. Can't remember what else was in it. From Revolutionary Communist, and he got 6 likes, so a few people agree. Damn it, I can't believe they delayed Lesbian Zombie Simulator. So the lesbian thing, people think this is a huge agenda pushing issue. And I see that being the case in a lot of stuff, but with The Last of Us, I really just don't, because the lesbian thing is front loaded once in one trailer, where they Ellie and not Tina, her name is Dina, because I got flack for that before. They have a snog. Okay, fine. You can say that's pushing the homosexual agenda. But does that mean that then every game that doesn't do that is pushing the heterosexual agenda? And if you're against homosexuality, you're a bad person. I don't care what you're a shit human being. If you think you're being pandered to, I don't see that here, because it's in one trailer once, and then it's subtext for the others. Like when the one where you see Ellie and Dina smoking a joint. Nothing's there to tell you they're gay. It's an implication, and based on the information from the previous trailer, we know that. And Ellie's been gay since the original Last of Us. It was in the DLC. I don't see how it's an agenda-pushing thing.
If anything, they're pushing the agenda about being able to kill people with guns and knives, and
they're pushing the agenda that they're pushing their agenda aren't real people. The zombies. You shouldn't call them zombies. You should call them the differently mortal.
God almighty.
So many people think like this, and I just don't get it. There's so many examples of it where it's a much more valid case, and I just don't see it for this one.
Yeah. Shall we move on quickly? We need to wrap this up pretty soon. That was it for our YouTube comments. Thanks everybody for commenting on our stuff and keeping the engagement high. We're going to move on to the very last segment of this podcast, which is the bad dad joke of the week. Right then, Henry, are you ready?
Let's do it.
What did the buffalo say to her son when he left for school?
I don't know. What did the buffalo say to her son when he left for school?
Bye, son.
I mean, I've heard that one so many times, and it's still
so bad,
so funny,
but still it's so good. That's the essence. So bad, but still good. It kind of sums up everything about our content, really.
It's just a bad dad joke is kind of a tautology because all dad jokes are bad. They're all bad.
It's supposed to be bad, but they're supposed to be good. Well, not supposed to be good. They're supposed to be bad, but they're good.
In a good kind of way.
There you go. So that is it for this week's podcast. Thank you for sticking with us. And if you made it this far into the podcast, then please consider going to support us over at patreon.com/prettygoodgame, because you obviously like the content. You can get this podcast for 2 days early if you support us for any amount at all over on Patreon. And it really does help us out because like I said, we would be absolutely dead in the water without the supporters over on Patreon. So that is it. I'll finish self-promoting for now. We will be back. Henry will be back next week, and we will be back with another podcast at the end of next week. And until then, on behalf of Henry and myself, bye for now.